Welcome back to Food with Frank. This week we're making lasagna. We're going Italian, boys. You know what that means. A spicy meatball. Now, we've taken all the precautionary and safety and sanitary steps to making this dish correctly, such as washing our hands, making sure our utensils are nice and clean, and our meat is being stored at the proper temperature. See you soon. And we're back. Okay, we started cooking our hamburger. Now we got about 2 pounds of ground beef in here. Now, when we cook it down and drain it, it's going to be about 1.5 pounds. We put it on medium, we broke it up a little bit, and we just let it go. Now, what you're going to look for is it to go from a pink to a brown. And we take our nice little stabby tool here and just stab it. And give it a good nice twist. That way you don't get just one piece of meat in one little section. That needs to go for a little bit longer. But some pieces like this over here, we can just stab and twist. Let that go for a little bit. Now, we're going to dice our onion. Now, there's 3 different ways you can dice it. You can do a large dice, a medium dice, a small dice. We're going to do a small dice, that way, if somebody doesn't like onions, they're not going to get a huge hunk of onion. Now, I've already went ahead and did a little slit on the bottom, that way it's flat, it's even, and it won't roll. Now, I took the little pinhead top off of it, just because nobody's going to eat that and it's not really useful. Now, as you can see here, what we're going to do is we're going to come in and go along the sides here, just in a horizontal fashion, cut it up. Then what we're going to do is take our knife and chop it vertical all the way across, and that will give us our dice. Now, like I said last week, we said to not cut this end. That's because this is the root end and it's holding the entire onion together. Now, I'll catch you after we get this chopped. Okay, a quick thing to know, constantly taste stuff. Like, if it's meat, wait till it's fully cooked and taste it. If you need to add a little salt, a little pepper, if you really want Italian seasonings, like really strongly, put a little Italian in it. But I tasted the meat. It needs just a tad bit of black pepper, and we'll mix this all together. And for salt, a good trick to learn is pour a little bit in your hand and just sprinkle it a little bit at a time. That way you do not oversalt your meat and get that really salty and disgusting flavor. So you just take your little stabby twisty tool and just give it a nice good twist. That way the pepper or the salt are getting into this meat and in the juices, which we will be draining off in a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. Put that over there. Now, as you can see, we diced up our onions. They're ready to go. We'll catch you back when we're about ready to drain. Okay, we're back. We're ready to drain the fat off the ground beef. Now, we have our bowl and we have our strainer here. You can get this at Walmart or any commercial food store. You set it down on a surface that can take high heats, because if we pour this down a sink, say like a normal sink like we've been using, it will clog it up and it just ends horrible. But if you're in a commercial restaurant or just in a restaurant in general, they'll have grease traps and it just works out better if we use the strainer. Okay, we turn our heat off. Now we're ready to go. Now, you want to do this very slowly. And it'd probably be a good idea if you had your little twisty tool just to help get the edges. Just help her along. Now, if you don't get all of it, that's fine, because we will be using this to saute onions and heat the pasta sauce at the same time. So just Make sure it's all level, get some steam off. Now, turn the temperature of the burner on right above low, and just push the onions off with the spine of your blade, because if you push it off with the edge of your blade, you're going to dull your knife extremely fast, and it just makes sense to use the spine, because that's a whole lot thicker than that. And besides, who wants to damage their equipment? It's just not smart. Now what we're looking for in the onions, a little bit of translucency. You can add mushrooms to this. If you want to add mushrooms, you'd add it in this stage. That way the mushrooms and the onions, the flavor combines, and it just knocks out an extra step. We'll catch you back when we're ready to pour the sauce in. Okay, now we have 28 ounces of pasta sauce. We just pour it in. Make sure you get as much as you can out. And just heat it evenly through. Now, the reason why you have that loud hiss at the beginning is because the sauce was at room temperature and it hit a hot metal, say the skillet, of course. It's gonna give that loud hiss noise. But if it's like room temperature, you're not gonna get hiss. It does that for, say, cold milk in a hot pan or a medium hot pan, because you're gonna get that hiss either way. So you want them about at the same temperature, or just one right above the other, but not too high. We'll cut back to when we mix the meat and the sauce. Okay, now that our sauce is heated through evenly, we're going to take our meat from our strainer. We're going to go a little bit at a time. That way we can mix it in and we don't have to worry about overfilling the skillet and it just pour out here or pour onto the cutting boards and just make a mess of things. Keep it at least a little cleaner. Okay, now that much is incorporated, we're going to go back, add the last little bit of our ground beef. Now you can do this a little faster, but for all-purpose sake, I'm doing this slowly so people can see. If they need to, write it down or take notes. Do whatever you need to do. Because if you want to repeat this recipe, you can. I got it from allrecipes.com because I honestly did not have a lasagna recipe on, like, to go off the top of my head. Now if it was big spaghetti, oh yeah, I memorized that off the top of my head, just because it's that good. I'm not a big lasagna fan, but I'll still eat it. Okay, another thing you can add to your lasagna is pepperoni chunks. And it's as easy as getting a thing of pepperoni pre-sliced, putting them in stacks like this so they're a little thick. Just take your knife and just chop them into slivers at first. Then come back through from the other direction and just put them into bits. Now you can either throw them into your sauce and meat, or you can sprinkle them on top or in between layers. It's really up to you. Now for the cheese, like the cheese layer, we got our ricotta, our cottage cheese, our Parmesan, and we have 2 eggs in there. Now, how we're going to layer this is meat, pasta, cheese, meat, pasta, and just keep going. Then for the top, we're gonna add some mozzarella or Parmesan, it's really up to you. Then we're gonna add our lovely provolone. This is gonna be some good eating. Okay, now it's time to layer. We're gonna do a thin layer at first of our meat. And just spread that out. Make sure you get it in all the corners. If it doesn't all fit in the, like, if you need to use a little extra, then use a little extra. But this is basically going to flavor the pasta. Okay? Now, for this lasagna, you don't have to cook the pasta. But if you want to just make things a whole lot easier, get the oven-ready lasagna pasta. And you just simply layer it. Another thing is you want to use a 13 by 9 pan. You want to preset your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. When we first start to cook these, we're going to put them in for 45 minutes. That somewhat fits. Then you're going to take it out, check it, and put it back in for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, now we take our cheese and just simply pour it in. This is going to give it a nice sweet flavor because we're using both cottage and ricotta cheese. Some people just use ricotta, some people just use cottage cheese. I think using both gives it a lot sweeter flavor than just using one or the other. And you're basically just going to paint this on your pasta till it's nice and layered. A little more. Just going to keep painting away with the white cream. Okay, now it's time for the final step, adding your cheeses on top. You might be wondering why there's a cookie sheet underneath the pan of lasagna. This is a preventive measure for if there's spillage. That way it's easier to clean up on the pan and the oven, because let's face it, cleaning an oven, it sucks. Okay, now we're gonna do half shredded cheese and half provolone slices. This is definitely going to be some good eating. Now, we just slap that bad mamma jamma right there. Now you can switch up the cheeses if you want, but I like the provolone. I think it tastes better. And there we go. The oven's already ready to go at 350 degrees. We're just going to simply pick it up.
You're going to put the mozz on top.
And just slide it in. And we'll be back in 45 minutes. Alright, joining me today is Caitlin.
Hello.
She's going to give you some healthy alternatives to the lasagna we made. So, take it away, Caitlin.
Okay, so in place of the meat, you could do a 99% lean ground turkey. You can keep in the onions and whatever else that they added. You could still keep in your tomato sauce. And instead of the cottage cheese that they used, you could use a low-fat cottage cheese, as well as adding in some fat-free cheese.
Thank you, Caitlin.
You're welcome.
And another option is eggplant lasagna. Some people like it, some people don't. I've had it. It was pretty good, but other people don't like it. So, catch you when the lasagna comes out. Alright, now it's time to pull her out of the oven. Yeah, she's toasty. Now I'm just going to do a simple poke with my knife. Some of the top is a little extra crispy, but you can just pick those parts out. But other than that, she looks delicious. We're gonna throw a little bit of our mozzarella cheese on there, just to help enhance the flavors. And now, we just shove her back in for about 5 minutes. Catch you soon.